Most expensive V-type engine I've ever gotten in this game ever. The whole 50 schmackaroonies.
Yeah, so Old Bird is not spawning in. Switch to Bobo's view.
If
There's
I'm
like
last
7.
alive, vote and I'll drive the truck back. Cause
Oh. Okay, we are.
Hey there. Learning the cruiser jump is often quite challenging and difficult, so I'm here to fix that. We're going to be going over the cruiser jumps on Artifice. Now there's 3 types of jumps that I'll be discussing. First, the most common one, fire to ship, main to ship, and then ship to fire. This last one's really only used for Eclipse days because you don't want to drive your cruiser through all of the Old Bird, Dog, and Giant mess. I'll do jump, I'll do jump.
Just go, just go.
Yep. Need some good RNG here. There we go.
Okay, we have time, we have time. Hey, good.
There we go.
Nice.
Here's a top view of where the cruiser should be. That little box is the area where the cruiser can be, and the expected jumps and the path that you'll take. Now is a side view that should give you height and depth. Pause if you need to. Again, each of those markers is a jump. Now, depending on where you line up and the angle that your cruiser is at, it can actually affect those later jumps. You may only need to press AW once to go forwards and sideways. Sometimes you don't even need to press it at all. Sometimes you need both forward and sideways jumps in there to attach to magnet. Now I'm going to go over what I call a deadly lineup. So this is when your cruiser is in the same perimeter / area of the little cruiser picture on screen. And as you can see, if you were to do 2 sideways jumps, you just barely clip that radio tower. Because if you were to line up exactly with a radio tower, that jump is possible. I'll explain that in a second. But this one is not. The reason being is that when you do that AS jump to try to get out of the way, you're doing it so quickly after your double jumps that you're going to overshoot the ship because you've essentially turned the beginning part into a triple jump. And that momentum upwards, you're not going to be able to cancel it out, jump downwards. You just can't do that. So you're either going to overshoot the ship or you're going to be too far back that you're going to clip the ship at where the entrance is. Now this is the jump that I was talking about, where if you have your cruiser all the way up, pretty much there, this is possible where you are in line with the radio tower. This isn't really practical though, unless there are a bunch of rocks behind you, or there's like 2 old birds or like a giant nearby, and you need to get out of there fast. You don't have time to back up. I just recommend backing up. It solves all the problems, but here we go. With this jump, you can see that you're already quite far ahead, so that when you do that AS jump and then do that AW jump, you're pretty much back to where you started, but you still have that height aspect to deal with. So that's what the WD jump is meant for, is that D jump will negate some of the velocity that your cruiser is going with the A direction, so that it gives you more time to fall down, essentially, instead of overshooting the ship, because that's what we don't want. Now another thing to watch out for is this area that I've circled right here. It's kind of like a mix between trees and telephone wires. Anyways, if your cruiser happens to land on top of it while you're doing your jumps, which isn't uncommon, just be aware that your cruiser won't blow up. In fact, it will kind of like bounce off of it. So be very careful of that, because you can easily, again, overshoot the ship, especially you jump at the same time as this, as you'll be like launched into the air. Or it will rotate your cruiser, and I've attached to ship many times with my cruiser completely sideways. Let's get started now. So we're going to be using Imperium, and you can access the main menu by pressing F1. Now you can see the control panel here. For this menu, I recommend turning on Infinite Sprint, God Mode, and Enable Flying. And in the Cruiser Control tab, you're going to want to turn on Infinite Turbo and Instant Ignition. Now, there's something about Infinite Turbo that we'll have to discuss later. Then finally, you can go to Moon Control and change the weather of Artifice, if it's bad weather or you just want to practice Eclipse for today. Let's begin now. So to spawn a cruiser like you see here, you're going to want to press F2 and type in CRU for cruiser. And you notice that every time you place it, it's going to be facing one way. As you can see here, I can go across the map. It's going to be facing the same way. Even in the warehouse or on the roof. It's always going to spawn the same. So we're going to have to make do and spawn it right about here. So let's now start the cruiser up. Gonna get in, open the door, and sit down. Getting it started up, you can see we have instant ignition, so it turns right on. But what if we didn't have instant ignition? Let's turn that off real quick. You can see, go to your Imperium by pressing F1, turn it off. And now you're gonna want to do short bursts, because you can do one long burst, but after a while it will just not turn over. Again, here's some more examples. Just a few seconds at a time. Not too quick, you don't get enough, but right here you can see I got it pretty quickly. Sometimes it will take up to 8 tries, 10 tries on notice, but this worked pretty well. Now we're going to fill up the cruiser. You can see that this bottom bar is the health, this green one. If that gets low, you'll start to catch on flames, and if it goes all the way to 0, your cruiser will explode, and you cannot fix it afterwards. This top bar here is the turbo bar. It's only 5 full at most, and this is what will enable you to do your turbo jumps. Now the way to fill up these bars is with Weed Killer, and if you already have infinite turbo on with Imperium, you won't have to worry about this bar. Now you can try to fill up it with Weed Killer from the front here, but it's kind of inconsistent. I'm spraying it here, and it's only somewhat filling up. But you can actually go behind the cruiser, right here, where the circle is. If you spray above the radio right here, it will actually fill up every single time. I don't know why this works, but it just does. Alright, now let's back up the cruiser to our little spot here. And you notice I am just going to barely be pressing W to go backwards here, right? Just barely. You can see I'm just barely touching it, because otherwise you're just gonna ram into whatever it is. This thing is very touchy. Alright, I gotta park it here just so that I can turn on magnet. It's important that you always remember to turn on a magnet. One thing that I like to do is have a buddy always detach me and turn on magnet after I leave from the cruiser and drive it over to fire, which I'll show you in a little bit. Now you can leave it over here, but I always like to tuck it in this corner here. Sometimes you have to spend a little bit of time trying to jam it in this corner, but eventually you'll be able to get it in here. Alright, now it's time to do the jump. I want to back up pretty close to the edge of this hill here, but don't quite touch it. So, we're going to do 2 jumps in the A direction really quick, so AA while you're pressing the spacebar. Then from here, again, it kind of depends. I typically like to do another A jump, then 2 AW jumps. You can see here, I did the 2 AW jumps there, so I did 3 A jumps and then 2 AW jumps. Now playing the clip at 50% speed. I did 3 A jumps, AW, AW. You could do 2 A jumps, AW, AWA. That will work too, especially if your cruiser is angled backwards. But I feel like this method just works. You don't always need to use all 5 jumps. I've connected plenty of times only using 4 jumps. I'll quickly go over how to drive the car to fire. So if you spawn it, the car, with Imperium, near the ship with the magnet on, it will automatically orientate to this position here, which is really helpful. So just spawn it near the magnet. Alright, so you want to make sure your car's running and that you're full turboed at the beginning of the day. Again, I typically like to have a buddy that turns the magnet on and off for me right here. But if you're by yourself, I'd park it around here, then I go turn the magnet on. Now some things to be looking out for as we drive cruiser through are rocks. If there are any rocks, there's going to be a lot of them, so just you got to get used to them. And then old birds that haven't turned on yet, those can kind of stick in the way. And the telephone poles you can't knock down. Trees you can. Another thing are med pits, your friends especially. You can drive over them, but your friends are not able to walk over them, so make sure you alert them. And then finally this part here, sometimes on rainy days, the cruiser will start slipping all over the place, even if you put it in park. don't know why, but it will just happen. This is actually tragic. Alright, I got it. I'm just too freaking good at this game. Too good at this game, dude. Now it's time to go over main jump. So, this assumes that either there's like a billion rocks, or there's like 5 old birds behind you, or you just have all your stuff at main at the end of the day. Whatever may be the case, you need to do the jump from main. So, you're probably going to have the cruiser at fire already, so just drive it on over like you're doing here. And then, you're never going to be able to get the cruiser all the way on this platform, so just drive as fast as you can onto it, and make sure you're right up against the right wall here. See, the back wheels are off the platform, but that's fine, that's what we need. Don't forget your fake turbo jump here. Now let's take a second to look at the diagram for this. So, you can see those 2 A jumps at the beginning are crucial. It's so crucial why your cruiser's all the way to the right, because you can so easily clip the roof of that other building. But once you can do that, you're pretty good. You do 2 S jumps, just alone S jumps, to pretty much back yourself up. And then finally an AW jump, just the W to cancel out all the backwards momentum, and then an A to really get you into the magnet. Now we can see the side view. Main, it kind of looks like a jumbled mess, but that's because you got to do the A jumps really quick, and cruiser's got to be all the white to the wall. And this should kind of give you some height and depth, hopefully. I'm not the best graphic designer, but this is better than nothing, right? Right, now it's time to do the jump. Make sure you can drive, and double A, S, S, A, W. You can see how close I was to hitting that roof, but connected pretty well. Pretty good. Now we're going to be doing it at 50% speed, well, same clip, but just slowered. You can really see how close you are to hitting that roof. This is why just do fire jump. Only do main jump if it's necessary, or unless you're really good at it. But that roof is always going to be there, so.
See, look at this. And the cruiser's on fire. And that's it.
Now it's time for the Eclipse jump. Arguably the hardest of the 3 jumps. It's kind of the opposite of the fire to ship jump, but you can see we have 4 straight D jumps. You don't even take your finger off the D key. And then 1 D W jump to correct. Because otherwise, you'll hit that hill back there and your car will most likely just blow up. There are other methods of doing this where you do 3 or 4 D jumps, then a DS, then a DW. I've just found this works well because you actually angle your cruiser already so that you're going to miss the radio tower and then just correct at the end. I think it's a lot easier. This is what I've been doing. I tried the other methods, they didn't really work for me, so I created this method. And notice, there's no magnet by the fire exit. So, how do you survive? Well, oddly enough, if you stay in cruiser and jump into the wall, your cruiser will just hit the wall and land. Sometimes you'll take damage. I've noticed at most you'll take about 40 damage. Your windshield might break. Your car will take some damage. Sometimes you'll be completely fine. It's kind of like a dice roll. I think it mostly depends on how your cruiser lands, if it's mostly upright or if it's a little bit tilted. Now here's a look at your height and depth map for the ship to fire jump or the Eclipse jump. You can see at the end that last DW jump, it pushes you right into the hill there, and then you bounce right off and come to a stop. You want to be holding your brakes at this point, otherwise your car could just start going in one direction. That's not really what we want. And lastly, make sure once you actually make the jump, fill up your cruiser again. You don't want to wait until it's 11 p.m. Realize that you forgot to fill up your cruiser, especially when it's eclipsed, and it's too late because there's 3 old birds camping you. As we unattach the cruiser, you're going to want to make sure it's already turned on and filled up. We're just going to ever so slightly back up and press the A key to tilt us. And you're going to want to stop right here. As you can see, pay attention to this tree and the radio tower. Because what we're going to do, we're going to draw two imaginary lines right through the center of both so that the tip of our windshield here is in between the both of them. Now, this will line you up optimally, and you can kind of have a reference every time you do this jump instead of just kind of sort of remembering how far you backed up. This should be a good guide. Make sure to do the fake jump if you have Imperium. Now let's actually do the jump. Here, I'm going to do 4 D jumps and 1 DW jump. You see, we bounce off the wall, and we survive. Make sure to press those brakes, otherwise you're going to be going flying off in one direction. As you can see here, we were pretty lucky. Took no damage. The player took no damage, and the cruiser took no damage. And then from here, you can just back up, or I guess here I was lining up for the main jump. Either way, you're good to go now. Whatever you do, just remember to fill up your cruiser and have a buddy turn on the magnet, unlike what I did here. Let's run the clip back at 50% speed. I did 4 D jumps. I didn't even take my finger off the D key, in fact. And the last one I just did a DW. Now if you're angled a lot more than I was there, you may have to do 2 DW jumps at the end. It's just going to take some getting used to, especially the whole backing up part. But just make sure you turn on the car and fill up your cruiser before you do all the backing up. Otherwise, your cruiser's going to start slipping down the hill. Here's a really common mistake. It will look like you just blow up mid-air before you can even touch the ground. What you're actually doing is you're hitting the hill back here. So I just did 4 or 5 D jumps here. You can see, because I didn't correct forwards, I just blow up. Okay, now here's a clip of me hitting it so that there's about 3 D jumps, a DS, then a DW jump, where you pretty much go around the radio tower, where you don't even line up that much at all here. Just don't do this. Like, just see how close I get to the radio tower. Like, look at that. You're not going to be able to do that every time. Like, that was just luck there. So, just line your cruiser up in the beginning. It's going to help you a lot more than doing a zigzag around this. Okay, now it's the end of the video. Again, I created this video because I was having troubles with the cruiser jump, and I couldn't find any guides out there that would really help me. So, once I'd figured out how to solve them, I began working on this, so that you hopefully can solve your cruiser jump problems. I will be starting to stream high quota record attempts with my squad group, so that means that I will probably be active enough to answer questions in the comments if you have any about these cruiser jumps. Otherwise, yeah, that's it. So, see you later.